Dennis Hopper was one of the great American actors of all time. He was famous not only for his talent, but also his antics, his attitude, and his daily routine, which were often a detriment to his health. Join Facts First to learn about Dennis Hopper's life and career and how his daily routine was dangerous to his health. Dennis Lee Hopper was born May 17, 1936, in Dodge City, Kansas. He was one of 3 sons born to Marjorie and James. He was of Scottish descent, but was an all-American kid who represented the wildness America is known for. Following the end of the Second World War, the family moved to Kansas City, Missouri. As a young boy, Dennis took an interest in the arts and, in addition to his schooling, attended art class at the Kansas City Art Institute on weekends. He eventually studied at Helix High School and was active in the drama club. He excelled at acting and knew he wanted to pursue a career in it. His classmates voted him to be the most likely to succeed in life, and it seemed they got that prediction right. Upon graduating high school, he studied acting at a variety of prestigious schools, including the Actors Studio. He began performing in plays and was particularly moved by Shakespeare. Despite the fact that he gained a reputation for playing counterculture characters, he was actually trained in classic theater. It wasn't long until he decided to pursue a career in cinema. His debut roles were in 2 James Dean films, which was a great start as he was a huge fan of the young star. He had a role in Rebel Without a Cause and Giant. A couple years later, he was deeply traumatized by James Dean's death. Dennis acted in the film From Hell to Texas and was having a hard time on set. The director, Henry Hathaway, asked him to try out a scene several times again and again. Hopper ended up doing 80 takes of a single scene and lost his temper at the director. At that point, Henry Hathaway told the novice Dennis Hopper his career was over. Looking for adventure. Because of his attitude on the set of From Hell to Texas, Hopper didn't make another Hollywood film for almost a decade. He even earned the nickname Dennis the Menace because of his bad boy reputation. He didn't have the diplomacy that was demanded of an actor working during the golden age of Hollywood, but he also entered the industry at the right time. While the 50s got off to a great start before going downhill for Dennis, the 60s was offering something new. It was a decade of profound social, political, and cultural changes. American cinema was also changing. It wasn't afraid to show the darker sides of life. It wasn't afraid to be counterculture and not always classy and subdued. John Wayne recommended that Hopper appear alongside him in a new Western film called The Sons of Katie Elder. It was directed by Henry Hathaway, yet the Duke had spoken and Hopper's career had been revived. But Dennis Hopper knew he couldn't solely depend on major actors helping him out. He needed to create his own work. This video is brought to you by Established Titles. Have you ever been interested in being a lord or a lady? With Established Titles, now you can become one. For real. You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, etc. You can even get it on your dating profiles. You can purchase title packs that give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland. With the purchase, you'll receive an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our little Facts First kingdom. They plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running an early Black Friday sale, plus if you use the code FV10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/FV10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. Born to be Wild. The summer of '69 is a theme often discussed in retrospectives of that unique decade. Among the great things that came from that summer was the release of a film called Easy Rider. It was written by Peter Fonda, Terry Southern, and Dennis Hopper. Hopper also directed the film and was one of the main cast members, alongside Fonda and a then undiscovered Jack Nicholson. The film follows 3 friends as they ride motorcycles across America. It remains one of the quintessential American road movies and is considered a cult classic. It solidified Hopper's career as a counterculture actor, but also a writer and director. He had also appeared in another major film that same year, True Grit, and only 2 years prior had appeared alongside Paul Newman in Cool Hand Luke. From then on, Dennis always had one foot in Hollywood and another foot out. He was part of the mainstream and also walked on the edge with his rebellious films that went against what the establishment wanted. Dennis Hopper's career. One of his most well-known roles in the 70s was a small but unforgettable one. This was as a photojournalist in Apocalypse Now. He interacts with Martin Sheen's character and discusses the wildness of Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando. It remains one of his best-known performances. In 1980, he acted and directed in a Canadian film called Out of the Blue, which is lauded as one of his greatest achievements. Towards the end of the decade, he was once again praised for directing the police drama film Colors, which starred Robert Duvall and Sean Penn. Two other great performances from the 80s were in films Rumblefish, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and The Osterman Weekend, directed by Sam Peckinpah. But perhaps the masterpiece that allowed Hopper to showcase his full acting ability was when he played the evil Frank Booth in David Lynch's film Blue Velvet. In this film, his character was menacing, and even the simplest sentences could cause the audience to shudder. His acting career continued until his death, and perhaps his other best-known role was as the villain in the Keanu Reeves thriller film Speed. He also had an extensive career on TV, appearing in shows like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Legend of Jesse James, and Fishing with John Lurie. He also had a prominent career as a photographer and as an artist. Most notably, he took portraits of famous artists from Andy Warhol to the Byrds. He designed the cover art for an album by Ike and Tina Turner. Dennis Hopper's daily routine was dangerous to his health. Hopper lived well into his 70s, yet looking back, one wonders how he managed to make it that far. He was someone who loved to live life to the fullest, which often meant living life on the edge. He often took drugs like cocaine and speedballs and wasn't afraid to indulge in a drink or several. There were even times when he seemed out of his senses and acted out of character. But perhaps his zest for life and incredible work ethic is what helped him live so long. Sadly, he succumbed to prostate cancer and died due to complications from the illness in 2010. Before his death, he had broken up with his wife after a bad falling out with her. She tried to declare he was mentally incompetent when it came to dividing his assets. Dennis Hopper's son Galen got around 40% of his estate. His antics made him famous and notorious, but Dennis Hopper was also remembered for being a great artist. He was a Renaissance man and arguably one of the most talented of his generation. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite role of Dennis Hopper's? Let us know in the comments section below.